And David Howard.
I mean, that's oversimplifying, but you know what I mean.
No, it's pretty close.
But I'm more short sleeves today because I'm already covered. So,
Definitely.
Did you have something? You said my name?
No.
Okay.
I said David Hopkins.
Oh.
I got permission from the defense to send their names to him. Do you know Jim March?
I did. I didn't have any breakfast, so I was
Did
ready.
you go up on the hill?
All rise. Court is back in session. You may be seated.
Recording in progress.
Anything we need to take up other than wait for the district attorney general?
Betcha.
Let's go ahead and bring up. Who? Juror? All right. All right, anything we need to take up before we bring the jury in?
No, you're right. No, you're right.
All right, let's bring the jury in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have any hearing impaired equipment, but we will try to make sure that the microphones are turned up so everybody can hear correctly. If there's any issues with that, let me know, please. All right, then I believe we are ready for the state's next witness.
Your Honor, this name we call Angela Ezell.
Okay.
Stand right here, face the clerk, raise your right hand, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Let's stand right here and speak directly to the mic.
You may ask.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. If you would state your name for the court, please,
Angela Ezell,
and if you would spell your first and last name, please.
Angela Ezzell.
Thank you. Miss Ezell, where do you live?
Chapel Cemetery Road in Bon Aqua.
And if you could, for the jury who's not familiar with this area, could you kind of describe where that is in relation to Dickson County?
It is exactly a mile from the Dickson County line off the Hickman County side.
Is that to the south of Dickson County?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to take us back to May of 2018. Where were you working in May of 2018?
RJ Young in Nashville.
And were you working there on May 30th of 2018?
I was.
Now, when you went to work each day from your residence, how did you get to work?
I left my house and went down Sam Vineyard and turned up Tittle Switch to come to the interstate in Dixon.
And so when you're on Sam Vineyard to Tidwell Switch, did you take a right or a left?
I take a right onto Sam Vineyard, a left onto Tittle Switch.
Now, the intersection of Sam Vineyard and Tidwell Switch, is it a four-way intersection?
No, there are two paved roads. Sam Vineyard is paved, Tittle Switch is paved, and then there's a little dirt road that cuts off to the right.
All right. Now, once you turn left on this Tidwell Switch, what roads did you take to the interstate?
Tittle Switch, and then I turn onto 46 to interstate at exit 172.
And then you took Interstate 40 to where?
At that time, it was 809 Division Street in downtown Nashville.
Thank you. Now, did you always take that route?
Always.
How long had you been working for R.J. Young at that point?
10 years.
Did anybody ever ride with you to work?
Yes, my niece rode with me to work for 2 years.
Did she on May 30th of 2018?
She did ride with me that morning. I stopped at the Coltons in Dixon right before the interstate and picked her up.
What time did you typically leave for work?
Around 6 a.m.,
And what time did you typically pick up your niece?
around 6:15.
So on the morning of May 30th of 2018, did you take that same route you always took?
Yes, sir.
Was there anything out of the ordinary that morning?
Yes, sir. When I approached the intersection of Sam Vineyard and Tittle Switch, there was a car parked on the wrong side of the road facing the wrong direction.
Now, I should have asked you this a minute ago, but what type of vehicle did you drive at the time?
I was in a F-150,
2-door, 4-door?
4-door,
And what type of car did you see?
a sedan, a 4-door, probably 90s model car,
What color?
light tan or a pewter gray tan kind of color.
And so when you were coming up Sam Vineyard, you said that it was in the wrong side of the road. If you could, to the best of your ability, describe where the car was in relation to how the road is laid out.
Okay, so the car was on the left-hand lane, just at the mouth of the road, basically. So it was sitting facing the wrong direction against the flow of traffic at the end of the road, right as Tittle Switch would turn into Sam Vineyard.
Did you notice anything in particular about the car?
I noticed that the back windows were fogged up, like it had been sitting there for a while, and there were two occupants in the car, a male in the driver's seat and a female in the passenger seat.
Were all the windows fogged?
I could not see the driver's side as it was up against the opposite side of the road, but definitely the back windows that I could see were fogged. The front passenger window was fogged, but it was also down about 3 inches, so I could see into the car.
And so, if you would, just to make sure it's clear, how were you able to see in through a window into the car?
Because I was in the F-150, it sets up pretty high compared to a sedan, so I had as I slowly went around the car, because I didn't know why it was sitting in the middle of the road, I had a straight line of sight down into the car through the lowered passenger window as well as the front windshield.
Were you able to see a really good picture of who those individuals were?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you end up making any sort of report?
I did. I did not feel at the time that it was 911 emergency status because I didn't feel like anyone's life was on the line. And I did not have a number for dispatch. So I waited until I picked my niece up and had her Google the phone number for dispatch, and we called at that time and made a report of the car.
Now, which dispatch did you call?
Dixon dispatch.
And what did you tell the dispatch?
That there was a car sitting on the wrong side of the road and that the occupants appeared to be either passed out or sleeping.
Now, these individuals that you saw, did you ever see them again after that day?
Not in person, no.
What do you mean, not in person?
Like I saw them on the news.
Okay. Those are my questions. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Any questions?
No question.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down and you are released.
Thank you.
State may call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Kim Wingate.
Stand right here, face clerk, raise your right hand, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Just got a seat right there, speak directly to me.
Good afternoon, Ms. Wingate. Could you please say your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter?
Kimberly Lynn Wingate, Wingate.
And Ms. Wingate, how are you currently employed?
I work at the Dixon 911 Communication Center as a day shift supervisor.
Okay. And how long have you been in your current position?
Almost 11 years.
And how long have you been working in dispatch total?
Well, let me rephrase that. I've been a supervisor for 6 years, and I've been at dispatch for 11.
Okay. And as a supervisor, do you have any specific training on the dispatch system?
Yes, we are required to do training as far as how to pull recordings, CAD dispatch as far as for any calls, things of that nature. There's a lot of training that goes into it.
Okay. Could you, this is Dixon Dispatch, is that correct, that you work for?
I think our official name is Dixon County Emergency Communications is what our official.
Okay, that's a lot longer.
Yeah.
Could you go ahead and explain to the jury how an E911 dispatch system works?
As far as like how a 911 call comes in?
Yes, please.
Okay, so depending on landline or a cell phone, it's different cases. If it comes in from a landline, it'll show us information on a screen that gives us number. As far as a cell phone goes, anytime it comes in from a cell phone, the first information that we see as a dispatcher is the tower address, the tower that the cell phone's actually closest to. And then if it's with a cell phone, that tower location is what we see, and then occasionally after so many seconds we can see a better location, but it only ever shows us the tower address. The address that we get from the caller is how we know where to go.
And when a call comes in, what kind of computer recording system starts up?
Okay, so anytime a call comes in, any call, non-emergency or 911 to our center, it is recorded. It immediately, as soon as they dial the number, you can sometimes hear on the recordings where it starts recording before we ever actually pick up. You can hear the phone ringing into our center where it starts recording as soon as it picks up that it's a call for our center.
Okay. And once the call comes in, what are the dispatcher's duties at that point?
Anytime a call comes in, the first initial is to try to get a location on the call and then to determine what type of call it is. We do that through questioning. We go through a lot of training when we're first hired on what questions to ask to determine location, type of call, and who to send to it.
Okay. Is the call when it comes in recorded then, and is it preserved?
Yes.
And while the dispatchers are on the line with the caller, are they also making notes in a system to alert other law enforcement?
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so even though everything's recorded, we still record everything in what's called a CAD system, which is a computer-aided dispatch system. So all the information that the caller gives us is then logged into that system, such as vehicle descriptions on the type of call, people, any information that we can get that will assist the responders for the call.
Okay. And is there a system that keeps up with the CAD corresponding with a call?
So they're logged in different systems. So as far as the recordings go, they're in a different program as far as server base than our CAD system. So they're in two separate server locations. So you have to log in. The easiest way for me to explain this is you have to log into two separate locations to be able to pull each one. So if I need a call, I have to log into our recording system. If I need the actual just CAD information, just the notes from the call, I have to log into the CAD to get that.
Are there numbers that correspond so that you know which calls go with which CAD report?
Yes. So when we log into our recording system, we are able to see station numbers as far as which station took that call to know which dispatcher took that call to make them match up.
And along with taking non-emergency and emergency calls, do you all keep track of police and emergency services radio traffic as well?
Yes, we do for all police, fire, and EMS in Dixon County.
And can you describe a little bit about how that system works or records?
It's on the same system as our call system. They're set up through the same recorder system. Basically, all radio transmissions are recorded as far as incoming and outgoing. and they're pulled the same way. It's all in the same system. So when we go to pull recordings for the actual radio traffic, it's listed different, labeled different, but it's all in the same system, so we know what's radio traffic and what's a call.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the radio traffic system, how communications work between dispatch and units?
Yeah, so if a unit needs to call into what we call central, what they actually have to do is key up the radio, whether it be a mobile, which is what's in their car, or a portable radio, which is like a walkie-talkie. They basically key up on the radio, and they have to wait for a beep to be able to talk. If they get a longer, different sounding beep, it's a busy signal. That lets them know that the radio is busy and they're not able to talk, because only one person can talk at a time. It goes vice versa, same for dispatch. We have to wait for a beep before we can talk to the responders.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, if I could approach the witness. So Supervisor Wingate, I've handed you a document. Do you recognize what this document is?
Yes, I do. It's the CAD report for the incident on May 30th, 2018.
Okay. And can you talk about a little bit at the top of it, what the date was, and walk through the beginning top of this document?
So at the very top, where it says incident number, is that what you're talking about starting with?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the incident number. So every call that comes in is assigned an incident number. It's always the year, month, day, and then it's assigned a 3-digit number that's particular to that day. And then it, to the right of that, it talks about incident type, non-emergency. So that means that's where we classify if it come in non-emergency line, 911 line, or if it was an officer-initiated call.
And this call came in as a non-emergency?
That's correct.
Okay. And then could you go down to talk about the receipt?
Right, so it says received at, and it gives the date, which was 5/30/2018 at 6:19 and 37 seconds.
Okay. And what is the dispatched at?
That's the time that our dispatcher gave the call out to responders and assigned somebody, the first unit, to that call.
Okay. And then scrolling down a little bit where it says an event type?
Yep, this is how we classify calls. So this one was classified as a welfare check.
Okay. And then the caller locations?
So the caller location is blank on this. So underneath that, it's the event location. So that's the actual location that we were given of the incident.
Okay. And would that have been done by the caller who called
Right.
in? Okay. And then there's a caller name that's been listed?
Mm-hmm. And so we always ask for the name of the callers when they call in. They don't have to give it to us, but when they do, we do document it.
Okay. And then the comment. Could you talk about what the comment means?
Okay, so the comment is always just a brief description of what's going on with the call. So in this incident, it says a small 1090s model vehicle parked on the wrong side of the roadway. So it's just a basic, generic, this is what the caller said, and then we go into further on down into the call, usually if there's more information to be on.
Okay. And on the first line of the narrative log, can you explain what the different columns mean?
The first, where it says narrative by, that's the dispatcher who entered the information. The narrative at shows the date and time that it was entered. The category can be used, but in this case was not. It's just basically if it's for certain responders, so where we can change the category, we're for police, fire, EMS. In this instance, it was not used.
Okay.
There's an is sensitive column. This is where we can mark to where it says yes or no. I've honestly never seen where we marked it yes. So other than that, that's all I can tell you about that.
Okay. So, but this is the full CAD report for Dixon Dispatch for the incident at Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard Road called in by Miss Angela. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, the state would move this as the state's next exhibit. However, we would like to have this witness keep it while she testifies.
Is that 10? Exhibit 10.
Let's get it marked.
Okay. Now, Ms. Wingate, there was a 911 call that was associated with this. Are you familiar with the Citizen 911 call?
I am familiar.
Call 2 on Wednesday, May 30th, 2018 at 6:19 a.m. with a GMT offset of 300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 603.
Communications, Stephanie, how may I help you?
Hi, Stephanie. I'm calling because there is a car parked on the wrong side of the road with what appears to be two people either asleep or passed out in it.
Okay, where is it at?
It's at the end of Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard.
Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard, you said? Okay, and what kind of vehicle is it?
A little Toyota, I think. Perhaps a Honda, but small, kind of probably 90s model car, kind of a tannish brown color.
Okay,
And it's literally parked at the intersection on the wrong side of the road.
and you said there's two people inside?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And they, like, I passed them, and neither one of them moved or looked at me or anything.
They looked like they were sleeping?
Sleeping.
Okay.
Sleeping or passed out.
All right, and what is your name?
Angela,
And a callback number for you, Angela.
931-996-9546.
Okay, I'll send somebody a route to Tidwell Switch Road in Sam Vineyard and see if they can make contact with these vehicles. Or this
Okay,
vehicle.
thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye.
You would move a copy of the 911 call as the state's
The Exhibit 11.
Now, Supervisor Wingate, I'm going to ask you again to refer to the CAD report that's been previously placed into evidence. On the CAD report, where it says narrative by on the narrative log, the first line there at 6:20:27, where it says two subjects inside, unknown if they're asleep or passed out, is that a note that's been placed in by dispatch?
It is, yes.
And would that be something that they do after they've received a call like this?
It's, so as far as the top portion that we spoke about in the comment, there's only so much we can fill into the comment section. So at that point, it looks like maybe this dispatcher continued on into the narrative more of what the caller was telling her.
Okay. But this is something that's common practice?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to put your attention down to line number 2, where it says 500 radioed, was muffled, could tell there was distress. What does the number 500 mean to the dispatch?
That's a car number, unit number.
And do you personally know whose car unit that was that day?
It was Sergeant Daniel Baker.
And the 500 radioed, was muffled, could tell there was distress. Is that something that you all would type in if you're listening to radio traffic?
Yeah, anytime that we hear any type of distress or anything, our job is to note that information.
And then if you could just walk down each of these, and I'm going to stop you when we get down to your entry.
Okay. So the 500 radioed, was muffled, could tell there was distress, and then it says that as Shadowlands entered, tried to radio, but no response.
And does that mean that dispatch is trying to radio that officer at 500?
Yes, at that point we're doing like status checks once we hear the distress.
Okay.
Then
Now I'm gonna ask you another thing about status checks.
Uh-huh.
When you hear distress, what does dispatch do when they hear something that is atypical?
So we immediately try to reach that officer to get an answer back to know that they're okay. We'll do it multiple times at that point. We'll even do where we try to call them by phone if we can't reach them by radio. And then after several attempts, usually at that point, we'll ask for somebody to start heading that direction to go check on them, or most of the time we don't even have to ask, they know.
Okay, thank you. And then the next line at 6:45:53.
548 bumped up to priority 1 traffic, so at that point is when that unit 548 started going lights and sirens is what priority 1 means.
And does that mean that they're responding out to the scene?
Yes.
And what is the difference? Do you know the difference in the priority 1 and 2 and 3?
So we have priority 1 and 2 here.
Okay.
Priority 1 means they're running lights and sirens. Priority 2 means they're just going without lights and sirens.
Okay. So this car, immediately upon hearing this, going out over the radio, went lights and sirens?
Well, I believe it was a little bit of time, like less than a full minute, but yes.
Okay. All right. And if you could continue down the line, please.
Radio status check 500, 2 times, no response. So that's just where they're checking the response. The status again, she called on the radio twice with no response.
Okay. And then I believe we're down to your entry. I'm sorry, there's one entry above that.
Right, this is 540 radioed for status check, no response. So this is where one of the actual units, 540, tried to holler at them as well with no response.
Okay. And then we get to K Wingate on there. Is that you?
It is.
Okay. And could you explain that entry?
At this point, I had done a status check. I had called for car 500 status, and I got an answer back. Status is 10-4.
And what does 10-4 mean?
That means they're okay.
Okay. And the entry down below that?
That's when another operator answered 500 that says 1 in custody.
Okay. And is that based on listening to radio traffic, these notes?
Yes.
And is that radio traffic recorded?
Yes.
And have you reviewed this segment of the radio traffic? Is that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
Call 20 on Wednesday, May 30th, 2018 at 6:50 a.m. with a GMT offset of -300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 115.
Daniel, you good? One custody. You want me to hang tight here?
It is showing confirmed, Kingston Springs.
Roger that. In custody, 1 male on the way to Dixon Central.
Airport.
Dixon Central 306.
Call 20.
Is that segment number 20 from this dispatch log? Or sorry, from the dispatch call-in?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And how can you explain how the segments are broken up? Why this is number 20? Or
So I'm not exactly sure how the system divides it into segments other than per radio transmission. So generally it'll divide them as far as a receiving transmit and one going out. So for example, the easiest way I can explain that is if say car 14 called into Dixon Central and I answered and then he gave me his radio traffic, usually that's divided into one segment, if that makes sense.
Okay. Completion of the radio traffic from this call.
Right.
And are we going to move segment 20, call 20 in as the next
The exhibit 12.
Now, Supervisor Wingate, when you heard that radio traffic about 1 in custody and they're going to dispatch, what does that mean to you all?
That they have they've arrested somebody and that they're en route to dispatch, because generally if someone has warrants or anything, they have to come by dispatch to pick up those warrants before they transport them to the jail.
And is that something in the normal course of police business that police officers have to do?
Yes, we hear it multiple times every day.
So that is a police function that they call in and then let somebody know where they are and what's going on?
Yes.
And in that call, did you recognize, was that Car 500's, was that the original person assigned to Car 500's voice?
At first, I did not, but as radio traffic progressed, I then realized it was not him.
It was not Sergeant Baker?
That's correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You are released and you may be on your way. State may call your next witness.
I was State House Deputy Chris Lashlee.
Deputy Lashlee, if you'll come forward, please.
Would stand right here, face clerk, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Love it. Just have a seat right there, speak right into the mic.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
State your full name for the record, please.
Christopher Stanley Lashlee.
And we spell your first and last name?
That's CHRISTOPHER LASHLEE.
Thank you. And Deputy Lashlee, are you employed by the Dixon County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been employed there?
Since 2010.
Thank you. And what's your current position?
Corporal.
Corporal. And Corporal Lashlee, were you, what was your position in May of 2018?
FTO.
And which shift were you working?
Third shift, sir.
And what is a third shift?
Third shift was, I got off 7 o'clock that morning, depended on.
Okay. So essentially, third shift, you were working over the nighttime hours?
Yes, sir.
Into the early morning? About what time would you go on duty?
I'd go on 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, somewhere there.
And then get off at what time?
7 a.m., sir.
Okay. So let me take you back to May 30th of 2018. Do you remember that day?
Yes, sir.
And were you working that day?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us briefly just kind of where you were at about 6:20 to 6:30 a.m.?
I was on Jones Creek Road.
Okay. And what were you doing?
I was just patrolling.
And did you hear a call or dispatch over the radio about a suspicious vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do then?
I called en route to the call and headed that way.
And why did you go en route to that call?
Because dispatch called it out. It was suspicious call, suspicious vehicle parked at an intersection.
Okay. And when you called en route, just generally, where was your Jones Creek location compared to where you would end up at Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard? About how far?
Guesstimating 15 miles.
Okay. So when you went en route to dispatch call, did you hear anything over the radio that concerned you?
Yes, sir.
And what did you hear?
Was that I actually heard them state that the vehicle was stolen.
Okay. You heard dispatch?
Dispatch did.
Corporal, if you'll pull that microphone a little bit closer to you, then it might help us to make sure we pick it up. Thank you.
Yes, sir, sorry. And then after that, heard an altercation over the radio, and I heard something. I heard gunshots over the radio.
You heard gunshots over the radio?
Yes, sir.
And Corporal, I know this is tough. I'm gonna try to walk through it, just kind of step by step. So let me back up just a little bit. You heard dispatch say that a vehicle was stolen.
Yes, sir.
If you were on scene and you ran a license plate number, is that what you would do to confirm whether a vehicle had been reported stolen?
Yes, sir.
Like how would you do it? Would you key up on your radio?
Yes, sir.
And what would you ask dispatch?
I would first run the tag, and then dispatch would come back to me and inform me that it's been, reported stolen.
Did that tag number?
Yes,
Okay.
and where it was stolen from.
Okay. And you say on the morning of May 30th, you heard dispatch over the radio confirm that it was stolen.
Yes, sir.
Now, at some point after that, I believe you've testified you heard what you thought was an altercation
Yes, sir.
and also some gunfire.
Yes, sir.
And what did you do then?
I sped up as fast as I could try.
We've heard some brief testimony about priority 1 and priority 2. Were you priority 1 after you heard the gunshots?
Yes, sir.
And does that mean lights and sirens?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what location were you en route to?
I was en route to the intersection of Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Deputy, in just a second, I'm going to have you step away from the stand. I'll set this tripod up. All right, Deputy Lashlee, if you walk over in front of the map. We'll have to speak up so that the court reporter can hear us.
Yes, sir.
Can you identify the roads here on this map?
Yes, sir. The intersection is Sam Vineyard Road and Tidwell Switch Road.
Okay, so can you point to Tidwell Switch and Sam Vineyard?
Tidwell Switch right here, this is Sam Vineyard right here.
And you were en route to this location?
Yes, sir.
And this location is in Dixon County, Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
And tell us, and now you can kind of turn and face the jury if you'd like, which area did you enter the location from, or which road?
I come down Tidwell Switch right here and ended right here at the stop sign.
All right. And when you got to the stop sign at Tidwell Switch, what did you observe?
I observed coming down the hill, I observed it was a brown side of the vehicle parked right here. It was actually in the left lane.
So the left lane, would that be the oncoming lane of traffic?
Yes, sir.
So you observed a brown Saturn?
Yes, sir.
And what else did you observe?
I observed, as I was coming down, I observed car 500. Coming from over here. As I stopped, it passed me by. That's what I observed.
Need some water? Okay. Hold up 1 second. I need you to do one more thing. If you would, Deputy, take one of these yellow stickers and place it on the map where you observed the Saturn that you just described. Thank you. All right, if you could turn to the witness stand.
Let's, Mr. Crouch, if you don't mind, let's turn that display so that the jury can still see it, but they can also see the witness, please. Long as he's not being blocked by it so that the witnesses can observe it. Somehow we've...
So Deputy Lashlee, when you arrived at this intersection, you've already testified you observed a Saturn and then you observed Unit 500 turn and go by you? Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
What did you think was going on?
I was coming down. When I was coming down the hill, everything had already calmed down. I was observing the scene. I thought car 500 was going to pull in behind me. It kept going.
Of course, when I referred to car 500, who would you think would be in car 500?
Sergeant Baker.
Sergeant Baker. And you worked with Sergeant Baker?
Yes.
So car 500 actually passes you or turns by you?
Yes.
And you're at the scene with this Saturn. What do you do?
I got on the radio and I asked him what he wanted me to do with the car.
And I'm going to play for you, Deputy, what has previously been marked as Exhibit 12, which is Call 20. And I would ask you to listen to the voices.
30th, 2018, at 6:50 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 115.
Daniel, you good? I'm custody. You want me to hang tight here?
Deputy, were you able to hear that?
No.
Okay, let's play it again. Yep. And again, I'm referring to Exhibit 12.
You want me to hang tight here?
Go back to it again.
Call 20 on Wednesday, May 30th, 2018, at 6:50 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 115.
Daniel, you good? I'm custody. You want me to hang tight here?
Okay, pause. And Deputy, do you recognize your voice there?
Yes, sir.
And what do you key up and say initially?
When I asked him if he was good.
Did you say, Daniel, you good?
Yes, sir.
And did you hear a response?
I did.
And what was the response?
I couldn't make out what it said. It's,
Okay. And then did you ask a question?
what does he want me to do with the car?
And I'll play it one more time for you.
Call 20 on Wednesday, May 30th, 2018, at 6:50 a.m. with a GMT offset of negative 300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 115.
Daniel, you good? I'm custody. You want me to hang tight here?
That's good. Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
And what were you asking Sergeant Baker?
I was asking him if he was good.
Okay.
If everything was okay.
And what else?
The response that I received was, I've got one in custody.
Okay.
And then I asked if he wanted me to hang tight here.
Okay. Now, did you recognize the voice that said one in custody?
I haven't worked with Daniel hardly on his shift. I didn't know if he was worked up or
Sure.
I couldn't recognize his voice.
Okay. And so when you hear this radio transmission and you're at the scene, what do you do next?
I walked around the scene, just something didn't feel right. And I observed the scene. I went to the car and checked it. I walked up to the car and looked at it. I opened the door. I found a magazine, loaded magazine, and the digital scale sitting in the seat. I set it on the roof. I closed the door. I walked around the vehicle. Around the back of the vehicle was one of our key cards laying on the ground. And I walked around to the other side of the car, opened the door to find the registration, couldn't find it. So I walked back around. At that time, the other deputies, showed up on scene and found a button, and then that's when I found the blood. And right before I found the blood, I called Daniel's phone. And because I was concerned with the shell casings I found and everything, and I asked him about that. And the call was in and out, the service was bad. And I know I kept asking him if he could hear me or what have you, but we ended up losing the call. And then right after that, I found the blood and the sunglasses, and I took a picture of it and I sent it to his phone and asked him if that was his guy's blood.
Okay. Let me back up and talk. You've kind of told us a lot. You pass Unit 500 and you don't exactly know what's going on. Is that correct?
Right.
But you get out of your vehicle, and what unit are you?
I was in 548 at the time, I think.
And you start looking around the scene where the Saturn is parked?
Yes, sir.
And what do you observe initially?
Initially, was shell casings laying on the road, on the pavement right beside the driver's door.
And when you saw shell casing, what did you think?
I remember, I just reverted back to hearing the gunshots. And so then I started looking.
All right, you saw shell casings. What else did you see on the ground?
On the ground was a Daniel's key card.
And when you say a key card, can you describe that for us?
A white card, like a credit card almost, but it's solid white. But we unlocked the doors at the sheriff's office with it.
You saw that on the ground?
Yes, sir.
What else did you see?
A button from his shirt.
Would it be a button similar to a button off of your uniform?
Exactly like that.
And you saw one of the buttons on the ground?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else did you see?
And then I seen the blood with Daniel's sunglasses.
You saw that on the scene? You saw a pool of blood?
Yes.
And Sergeant Baker's sunglasses? All right. Now, you testified that you saw a magazine. What is a magazine?
Magazine. It was fully loaded and it was in the driver's seat of the vehicle.
Okay. And did you remove that magazine from the vehicle?
I set it on the roof.
And I think you testified there was another item next to or in the vehicle that you also removed?
A digital scale.
And I believe that you took a photograph of this. Is that correct? Or
Not
someone, the
of-
sheriff's department took a photograph?
Not of the digital scale on the magazine.
Now, let me ask you if you can identify this photograph.
Yes, sir.
All right, can you describe what that is?
It's that digital scale and the loaded magazine I set on top of the vehicle.
You set them on top of the Saturn?
Yes, sir.
What made you take it out of the vehicle and set it on the roof?
I was just trying to put two and two together. You find a loaded magazine, nobody around, no gun, empty shell casings. I just put evidence on the roof.
Sure.
I didn't want anybody to miss it or pass it up.
And I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you still kind of confused as to what had happened?
Yes, sir.
What was your thought process when you observed all these items on the ground?
I was in a whirlwind. I was hoping somebody else.
Okay. Your Honor, if I could move that photograph as exhibit, I believe it's 13.
Being 13.
If you would hand that to the clerk, please. Now, Deputy or Corporal Lashlee, you said that you attempted to get in contact with Sergeant Baker by your cell phone, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you physically dial his number?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did someone answer?
Yes.
Did you recognize the voice that answered?
I did not, but the reception was horrible
Sure.
down there.
I understand. When that call dropped, did you also send a text message?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you take a photograph with your phone?
I did.
Send that to Sergeant Baker?
Yes, sir.
Corporal, if you could please identify this photograph, please.
It's a black and white copy of the picture I took.
Okay. And you took a picture with your cell phone, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what does that picture show?
That picture shows a large puddle of blood with a pair of black Costa sunglasses missing the lens, laying beside it.
Thank you. And Corporal, if you would look at the screen, is the photograph you're holding exactly the same as the photograph displayed on the screen? And I'm going to step over here.
Corporal, I know this is difficult, but we're having to record
Yes, sir.
it.
Yes, sir.
So just make a
Sorry.
verbal response instead of
Sorry,
nodding. Thank you. Thank you.
Corporal Lashlee, at the top of this photograph, can you tell us the name and phone number?
Yes, sir. It's Daniel Baker. Phone number, I need my glasses. I ain't even gonna lie.
Okay, we'll skip the phone number. Can you read
Yes, sir.
the text message, Saturday, May 26th? Will Domino's deliver to your house?
Yes, sir.
So, obviously, you've got some older messages in there as well.
I do. He was my neighbor.
Yes, sir. And you live close to Sergeant Baker.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you asked about Domino's?
Yes, sir.
Now let me take your attention to Wednesday, May the 30th, 2018. What is your text message?
That text message, it says, "Is that your guy's blood all over the road?"
And did you ever receive a response?
I never did.
Move that as the next exhibit, please.
Exhibit 14.
And at this point, Your Honor, I'm going to move the large map as Exhibit 15.
All right. The map will be marked as Exhibit 15.
Corporal Lashlee, and again, we're almost finished. How long did you stay at what I'm calling the Sam Vineyard Tidwell Switch crime scene?
I was there till 6:30 that night.
What were some of your other duties at this scene throughout that day?
Just to secure the scene.
Secure the scene. I'll pass the witness.
No question.
Thank you, Corporal. You may step down and you were released from your subpoena. So,
Thank you.
General Segi, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Keith Dearborn.
General Kraus, is there a reason to leave the Exhibit 15 up, or can we take it down?
No, we can take the tripod needs to stay on.
That's fine.
You would stand right here, face clear, raise your right hand, next one.
Do solemnly swear from the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Sit right there, speak correctly.
Hello, good afternoon. I want to make sure that I get your rank correct. Sergeant Dearborn?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sergeant Dearborn, could you please state your full name for the record and spell your last name?
It's Sergeant Gregory Keith Dearborn, and last spelling is Dearborn.
And Sergeant Dearborn, how are you currently employed?
As a school resource officer.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
I'm working on my 22nd year.
And could you just give us a brief overview of what your law enforcement career has been?
Started off working in the jail. Worked there for about 8 months. Was promoted to patrol. Shortly after, I was on special operations team for about 12 and a half years. Worked patrol for 20 years. And in the last 2 years, I've been a school resource officer.
Okay. In May of 2018, what shift were you assigned to?
First shift.
And what is first shift's hours?
At the time, it was 7. It was working 10 hours. It was 7 to 4:45.
And who was your shift sergeant at the time?
Daniel Baker.
And do you remember the morning of May the 30th, 2018?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please share with the court and the jury what you did that morning when you got up, when you came into work, and some observations? So we'll just start with how your day started going on shift.
Okay. I usually left the house about 6:25, 6:20. During the summertime, we'd always meet out back behind the sheriff's office at a picnic table for a shift meeting. And
I'll stop you right now and ask,
okay.
What's a shift meeting?
Pretty much the shift gets together, goes over, where the sergeants would need us and what zones we would work, and pretty much what we needed, the work of the day needed to be done. Like if they needed traffic detail work in a certain part of the area, we say pay more attention to that area or stuff like that.
Would you also get like information passovers?
Yes, ma'am.
Important things that you would need to know going on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So after you rolled to the Dixon County Sheriff's Office to the picnic tables for roll call, while you were at roll call, did you hear something that was different?
Actually, on the way, it sounded like, I heard they dispatched a call for a suspicious vehicle at Tidwell Switch. And that morning, Daniel had checked en route to it, and I thought, because he lived down in the south part of the county, I thought to help the other shifts out, we would kind of like step up, try to help up, go into calls early so they could go home on time, because they'd worked all night. And Daniel was good about trying to help the other guys out so they could go home. And he was headed down there to this suspicious call. Well, by the time I got to the sheriff's office and got out of my car to walk up to the back of the sheriff's office where we was all meeting, sounded like something garbled all over the radio, like a struggle. Then dispatch tried to raise him, and they couldn't, so I started getting worried. Then Deputy Rychlik come up, and I wanted to check en route. Well, Corporal Lashlee checked en route, and Joe Lovelace, they checked en route. So they was already further south than we were. When we left, was running priority 1 traffic. So we didn't know. We knew something was going. We didn't know what it was. But generally, the rules are if there's other units closer, the furthest ones will back down, and then the closest ones will stay running. Blue lights and sirens priority. On the radio, I heard 1 in custody. But what was strange was it didn't sound like Daniel. I couldn't tell you who it was, but I knew it wasn't him. And I've heard Daniel's voice a million times, and working with him, working for him, and it confused me. I didn't know what was going. It's like I heard that, but it just didn't. I couldn't process it. And I was talking to Deputy Rychlik on the phone. I said, "Was it just me, or does that not sound like him?" Because we was still on our way down there. I was on the phone with him. I said, "Something. What was it? Is it my radio? Is it me? Am I just not?" It's not. It wasn't him. He said, "I didn't sound like him." And so I was just more confused. The further I got, I just trying to figure out why. What? It just wasn't making sense, and I couldn't.
Now, Sergeant Dearborn, I'm going to ask you about when you hear the 1041 in custody. What does that mean to you as an officer?
Well, it means it could be it could be. I mean, it means that they've taken custody of a suspect or a prisoner. That particular situation, if you hear somebody struggling and you hear 1041 in custody, you're like, okay, well, they got him. This ain't secure. So, and that's why me and him we was the furthest ones out, so we backed down because we thought everything was okay, everything was fine.
And the language that was being used, was that language that you are used to as a law enforcement officer, that you do in your everyday job?
Yeah, and it was confusing because the language was there, but it didn't sound like him. That's what was confusing.
Did you make it, after you heard that, you said that you and Deputy Rychlik were on your way. Where were you on the way to?
To Tidwell Switch, to where he had checked out with the vehicle.
And could you describe when you got onto the scene what you first saw?
When we first got there, I seen Corporal Lashlee and Joe Lovelace was already there. We were pulled on the side of the road, and me and Dep Richlik pulled up, and they was like, "What do we got?" And they said, "We don't know." We walked down the hill. We seen a gray silver Saturn sitting at the intersection, and looking around, we seen a pool of blood. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Do you remember seeing anything else on the ground?
I seen the buttons. His sunglasses. His key card.
When you saw those, what was your first thought?
I didn't know. Excuse me. I didn't know. It wasn't good. I knew that. And the blood. It's. I'd been a cop for a long time. And when I seen the color of that blood, I knew it was bad. I'm sorry. Anyway, just.
Do you remember who the officers were that were down there on the scene with you?
Yes, ma'am. It was Deputy Steve Rychlik, Deputy Joe Lovelace, and Corporal Chris Lashlee.
To the best of your recollection,
okay.
Do you remember what they started to do, or if anybody left at that point?
We had little or no cell phone service or radio service. At best, it was hit and miss. Chris had told me, Deputy Lashlee had told me that he seen, maybe he thought Daniel's truck pass him when he come in. Which made no sense, because if the scene's going, you don't leave the scene. If you got an active scene going on, you wait till you get other officers there to process the scene. You just, whether it be a suspicious vehicle, a stolen vehicle, you don't just up and leave a crime scene. And I couldn't figure that out. And we got down there, and like I said, we seen the pool of blood. His key card, his glasses, his busted sunglasses, the button off of his shirt, blue button laying there. And so I told the guys, I said, look, I don't know what we've got. I said, we need to rope this off. I said, I don't know. I said, better rope it off and play safe. We can process it. Call our, CID and let them look at it. And then I believe they were trying to ping Daniel's GPS in his truck. They were trying to find out where, in fact, the truck had gone to. Steve went to look for the truck. Joe, they said he was en route to dispatch. Joe left. He said, I'm going to go to dispatch and see if I can locate Daniel. Then I think they pinged it at another location. Steve said, another location, I'm going to go to that. So me and Chris were still on scene, Corporal Lashlee. And I told him, I said, we need to rope this off. Let's get roping it off. So he started roping it off, and I started taking pictures and just trying to preserve the crime scene. Like I said, we didn't know what we had. We didn't know what happened.
Do you remember seeing any shell casings or ammunition?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Do you remember where that was approximately?
It was around the car, around the silver, the gray silver Saturn.
And do you know if it was live rounds or shell casings?
It was empty shell casings is what I seen.
Now, you just mentioned that you and Corporal Lashlee were there on the scene, that you were trying to rope it off and preserve it. How long were you at that scene?
From that morning, it was early that morning until late in the evening when they transported Daniel to Nashville. It was all day. I mean, I don't have a time because every time run together, but it was late in the evening. It was hot. I mean, it was way hot. And I was there all day till the evening started getting dark when I left.
Did your duties change while you were there from one position of securing a scene to another type of responsibility?
Yes, ma'am. When we set up the crime scene, the tape, I took pictures to start the crime scene log. When the TBI got there, I turned it over to them, and I started doing what's called overwatch as security for them while they're processing the scene. Because at the time, we didn't know, I didn't know what was going on. And so while they're doing their job, I was performing overwatch duties. In other words, just scanning, watching, make sure if there's still threats out there, I can handle that while they're trying to do their job.
Okay. So the overwatch, were you essentially security for the TBI
Yes.
while they were doing?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you armed at the time?
Yes, ma'am. I was armed with a M16.
And do you know approximately how long were you down there on overwatch for hours?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It was, from that morning till I guess it was almost right before lunch. The TPI had come down there, and it was right about around lunchtime. That's when I started doing overwatch, noonish, give or take. Then they, like I said, they were processing the scene, and that's when I went from handling the crime scene to just being security for them.
And why did you believe they needed security?
I'm sorry?
Why did you believe they needed security?
Because whoever had done this, we didn't know who did it or what happened, or we knew at that point in time, I guess it's about lunchtime, that I think that's in that time frame when they found Daniel. And we didn't know who did it, what happened. I didn't, because I had no radio service. I didn't have any cell phone service, and so I erred on the side of caution. I thought, well, I don't want it to happen again.
Did you feel that there might still be a threat?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I was scared. I didn't know I didn't want to be the next one. So.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Questions? No questions. Thank you, sir. You may sit down. You may call your next witness.
State on Steve Rychlik.
Would stand right here, face the clerk, raise your right hand, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am. Just have a seat right there. Speak directly.
You state your full name for the court, please.
Stephen Charles Rychlik.
And will you spell your last name?
Rychlik.
Thank you. And Deputy, where are you employed?
Dixon County Sheriff's Office.
And what's your position there?
Patrol.
And how long have you been employed with Dixon County?
August 18th of 2000.
All right, thank you very much. What shift were you working on May the 30th of 2018?
First shift.
And when does first shift come on duty?
Come in at 6:45.
6:45.
And we work till 4:45.
6:45 a.m. till 4:45 p.m.?
Yeah, that's what time we're going to be at roll call, 6:45. So you get there earlier.
Okay. And on the morning of May 30th, 2018, did you attend roll call?
I was pulling up. I think I was getting out of my car.
Getting out of your car?
Getting out of my car at the back of the sheriff's office.
And I was going to ask that, where does roll call happen?
At the sheriff's office, we pull around back and we go into the training room, and we all just kind of congregate there out back, just where everybody's going to be that day and what's going on.
So a roll call would be for your shift?
Yes, sir.
And the sheriff's office is, what city is that in?
Dixon, or Charlotte.
And we're in Charlotte right now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is Charlotte north of the city of Dixon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you got to roll call that morning, did you hear a transmission on the radio that concerned you?
I did.
What did you hear?
I heard Daniel Baker in distress.
You did?
I did.
And what did you do?
We just head out towards where he was at.
And Sergeant Baker was your shift supervisor?
He was my supervisor.
And what was it kind of normal for Sergeant Baker to respond to a call before shift?
Oh, yes, sir. People on their way to work, you know, if it's close to where you are, just help somebody out, help with the shifts out. Even if you're going home in the evening, just kind of help out, take some burden off somebody else. But it was, you know, it was never off to go help somebody, you know, another shift out or somebody else out on a call.
And this particular call was near the south end of the county?
Yes, sir.
And Sergeant Baker lived on the south end of the county? Kind of.
Pretty much, yes, sir.
All right. You hear this distress call, what did you do?
Head that way.
Priority 1 or 2?
1.
1. And why were you priority 1?
Just the sound of Baker and kind of broke up transmission, and he was in distress. It's not something you usually heard.
It's not something that was normal. As you were going south to this location, did you hear some additional radio transmissions?
Did.
What did you hear?
1 in custody. Everything's 10-4. 1 in custody, being en route to dispatch.
So you heard 1 in custody, and then you heard, what was the second one?
It's like being en route to dispatch.
Being en route to dispatch.
Which is where we take people after we on an arrest to meet with a magistrate or judge.
Was it Sergeant Baker's voice that you heard?
Didn't sound like it to me.
Okay. What did you think when you heard this transmission on the radio? The 1 in custody and en route to central dispatch.
It was off.
Fair enough.
Wasn't normal.
Wasn't normal. Did you keep heading south?
Yes, sir.
And did you arrive at the Tidwell Switch Sam Vineyard intersection?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do when you arrived there?
I was the third car and got out, walked to the corner, and just kind of walking through the scene. Just what's all going on. Met up with Lashlee and we started walking around.
Did you know where Sergeant Baker was?
Did not.
Were you all trying to find him?
Yeah. Well, when I first got there, kind of assessing the scene, and then it became, where's he at? We didn't have cell service good, and it was hard to get out on the radio.
All right. What did you observe at the scene?
Walking down Sam Vineyard, there was a button. And a broke pair of sunglasses.
Thank you. Need a second?
I'm good.
Uh,
And then we
Deputy
found the blood down there too.
You saw some blood?
Yes, sir.
Now, Deputy Rychlik, you didn't stay at the Tidwell Switch Vineyard intersection.
No, sir.
Where did you go?
When we got a hold of his GPS location, they said he was on Bear Creek Valley. And I've worked a call in Bear Creek Valley before, so I knew where it was, and I was like, there's no reason he should be over there.
And let me stop for just a second. When you say you got his GPS location, each of you have a patrol unit, and Sergeant Baker's was 500, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember the unit you were in on that day?
It might have been 505.
Okay.
I don't know if I still had my car from second shift. I don't know if I had swapped cars yet. I can't remember right now.
Are each of the units equipped with a GPS
GPS.
device?
Yes, sir.
Where dispatch and the sheriff's office can see where each unit is?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you meant when you said you got coordinates?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you received information about Bear Creek Valley Road?
Yes, sir.
And did you head that direction?
I did.
All right. And when you got on Bear Creek Valley Road, is that inside Dixon County?
Yes, sir.
What did you observe?
Have you ever driven down chert roads like that, like the dirty brown roads? You know when somebody's driven in front of you, it turns up and it's darker. And I saw one set of tracks. It would go from broken asphalt chert, and so I knew there was a car down there within just not long because it was still dark color where the tracks were. And I followed the tracks till, and there was like a sharp left turn. You can see where it turned over a little more, and there was barbed wire strands just kind of hanging, and the grass was high in a field, and I saw tracks going through the grass, through the field, I'll say.
And Deputy, I'm going to ask you if you can identify this photograph, please.
Yes, sir.
And what is that photograph?
That's the chert road, how it actually still looks, and to the left, the fence where the barbed wire was down.
All right. And does the photograph you're holding match what we see on the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is this Bear Creek Valley Road?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now this road also has, depending on which map you pull up, it can have another name too. Is that correct?
It does.
All right. So is this the church you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
I'll move this photograph as the next exhibit, please.
16.
Deputy Rychlik, can you identify this photograph?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
That's the barbed wire fence in the field.
Okay, I'll move that as exhibit 16.
17.
17. And Deputy Rychlik, one last photograph. Can you identify that?
That's where I went through the fence.
And we see a red line.
Yes.
You placed that red line there.
I did actually, yeah.
In fact, you took this photograph.
I did.
Thank you. And why did you put the red line on the photo?
That's where the fence was down.
Okay. So you saw tracks on the church road and the
I
fence
did.
down right there?
I did. The grass was through the fields about as high as it is in front of that fence.
Okay.
So that's why I was able to see where the car went through in the tracks in the grass.
I'll move that as the next exhibit, please.
18.
What did you do when you saw the tracks through the field?
Drove right through it.
All right. And how far out into the field did you drive?
Before that tree over the first post, I wasn't far from that tree to the left when I stopped my car there.
If you were in your patrol car and you were on the road, were you able to see Unit 500 anywhere here?
No, sir.
You could not see his vehicle from
No, sir.
You could see tracks.
I could see tracks. And it was still morning, so the ground was a little wet and stuff like that, so.
All right, Deputy, I'm going to ask you to stand up in just a moment and identify this map if you can.
That's the scene.
Now, we've already discussed that depending on which map you use, it's Bear Creek Valley Road, or what is this also?
Burke Road.
And Myatt Cemetery Road?
Yes.
So-
But it's marked on the sign when you first turn into it is Bear Creek Valley from Tittle Switch.
Okay. And just to avoid any confusion, when we say Bird Road or Bear Creek Valley Road, it's the same road?
Same road.
All right. And can you identify on this map where you entered the field? We've already seen the smaller photos. Okay. In which direction were you traveling?
It's coming this way.
Is that generally a north to south direction or east to west, or do you know?
Probably east, as I'm thinking.
Okay. And you drove through the barbed wire, or down the barbed wire fence?
Yes, sir.
And will you show us approximately where you parked your patrol car?
I'm somewhere right in this area.
And
Because I want to stay close to the tree line for cover.
when you got on that tree line, could you see Deputy
No.
Baker or his vehicle?
Could not.
What did you do then?
I used my patrol car and I walked this tree line to about right here when we saw his car.
You saw his car.
Yes, sir.
Did you approach the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And what did you see? You have to see
His car, windows up, doors locked. I looked in the window.
Could you see into the windows?
I can see in the front seat. And then I was looking into the back of a tinted car, kind of where you have a little overcast. It's like trying to look through that wall. It's dark, so I couldn't see in the back seat.
Check the doors?
I did.
Unlocked or locked?
Locked.
Locked. Did you notice anything else about the vehicle? That's fine.
Yeah, nothing offhand.
Nothing offhand. What did you do after you checked the doors?
Just walked around the car.
Were you alone at this point?
At the time we found the car, Deputy Cave, he was pulling up. We were both going down. I think he was on the opposite side. As I saw the car. As I was at the car, Cave was coming up to the car also.
Okay. Did you know where Sergeant Baker was?
No.
What did you do then?
Walked around the car, checked the doors. We were yelling for him. And just kind of seeing if he was in, if we could yell for him, walking around the car.
Did you leave the area where his
We
car
did.
was? Where did you go?
On the other side, opposite side of the car, right on the fence line, there was a small patch of dirt, and it had a footprint just right on top of it, like he was going over the fence. Somebody went over the fence. So we hopped the fence. We both went across the field to the creek. I went left through the creek. We were just yelling for him, walked up the creek. And then I cut back across the field and I was going over a high point that was to the left across the way.
Thank you. And we're almost finished, but I would like for you to approach the map again and with a yellow sticker, place a marker where you believe the location of Sergeant Baker's vehicle was. Thank you. And that's, sorry, his vehicle was Unit 500?
500.
And after you checked the vehicle, you said you crossed the fence. Can you point out which fence you crossed?
Like just to the other side, car's facing this way.
Okay.
And just right here at the fence. And then we went across the creek, or to the creek. I went this way.
Thank you.
Come across here.
Now, how long did you stay down on the creek?
I honestly can't tell you how long.
What prompted you to go back to Vehicle 500?
I heard Nathaniel Proctor yelling.
And you don't have to say what he said.
Yeah,
The
just
yelling, is that what made you go back?
That's what had me turn around. Yeah.
Okay. I'll move the large map as the next exhibit, please.
19.
Thank you. And I'll pass the witness, but we will use the map for the next witness as well.
Any questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll show you my step down. Is that my card?
Switch, stand right here, face forward, raise your right hand, be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this case be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you state your full name for the court, please?
Brian Cave.
And spell your last name?
C-A-V-E.
Thank you. And where are you employed?
Dixon County Sheriff's Office.
What's your position there?
I'm a sergeant on third shift.
Sergeant Cave, were you employed with Dixon County Sheriff's Office May 30th of 2018?
I was.
Do you remember where you were at approximately 6:30 to 7 a.m. on that morning?
I was on my front porch drinking coffee, getting ready to go to SWAT training.
On your front porch, drinking coffee. And where were you about to go?
SWAT training.
SWAT training. And did you go to SWAT training?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I responded to an officer down call.
How did you hear a call for an officer being down?
I was in my patrol unit, actually headed to the range over by Buckner Park, and there was chaos over the radio. Couldn't get any response from Sergeant Baker, and I was the next closest unit, and I turned around at Livestock Yard there by Pilot and went to aid Deputy Rychlik.
Okay. Do you remember the location that you went to aid Deputy Rychlik?
Bear Creek Valley Road.
All right. Is that in Dixon County, Tennessee?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And if you will, I want to refer you to this map that has already been marked as an exhibit. And can you point to the jury where on Bear Creek Valley Road you entered the field or parked your car?
Parked my car on the roadway down here so that other responding units would know where we were.
Okay. So when you arrived, were there any other patrol units parked on the road?
Not on the road, no, sir.
And you left yours on the road?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And what did you do after that?
I proceeded down the tree line to where Deputy Rychlik had parked his car. And if I recollect correctly, we walked together down to where Sergeant Baker's car was.
Okay. And what did you observe when you found Sergeant Baker's car?
The windows appeared to be covered with condensation. I remember it being very humid that morning. And I also remember it was parked parallel to, there's a fence line right behind that sticker. It was parked parallel to that fence line. And it appeared that he had tried to drive through an adjacent fence line, but couldn't. And I remember distinctly that the hood had been popped open on it.
The front hood?
Yes, sir.
Was popped open?
Yes, sir. It wasn't, it was open, but not like propped open. It had just been popped.
Okay. Did you notice anything else remarkable or that you remember about Unit 500 as you were walking around?
Not at that time, no, sir.
Okay. At this point in time, did you know where Sergeant Baker was?
No, sir, I did not.
So what did you do?
May I stand up?
Please.
Right here, there's a fence line, and Sergeant Rychlik and I had observed a trail or what appeared to be a trail on the other side of this fence line. We hopped the fence and started tracking that trail till we lost it.
Okay, thank you. Do you know about how long you were tracking on this trail?
20, 30 minutes.
And what made you stop?
I heard other officers back at Sergeant Baker's unit.
Okay. And did you go back to Sergeant Baker's patrol unit?
Yes.
Need some water? What did you observe when you got back to the patrol unit?
The deputies that were on scene at that time had requested permission from Captain Gafford to crack the window on the patrol unit. And they had popped the unit and found Sergeant Baker. and found Sergeant Baker inside the vehicle.
Thank you for your testimony. I just have a few more questions. Were you given additional assignments at this location on May the 30th?
Yes, I was.
What were you assigned to do?
After it was determined that Sergeant Baker was deceased and the EMT was no longer needed at the scene, priority 1, which is rush traffic, I went back to the roadway, moved my vehicle approximately 50 to 75 feet inside the field and secured it with caution tape, thereby securing the scene at that location.
You secured the scene of this location?
At the roadway, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And did you also start a crime scene log?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. Pass the witness.
Questions?
No question.
Thank you, officer. You may step down.
Judge, may we approach?
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, when we start a trial, we never know exactly how long it's going to take for us to get through witnesses or how long it's going to take for each witness to give their testimony and be cross-examined. And so, also, we don't know how long the lawyers are going to make in their opening statement. So, but today, we don't have every witness for this case here on every single day. We have them coming in on different times. So today, we are finished with all of the witnesses that we have available for today. So you're going to get an early afternoon to break off. We will start. The question that I had for the jurors would be, I know you're on Eastern Standard Time. Does anybody have any problem with starting our court hearing at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of at 9 o'clock? I see a thumbs up. So is everybody okay with that? Any reason from the council that we couldn't do that at 8 o'clock? You're just trying to get your witnesses here, I realize, but.
Judge, if that's something we can discuss more at length after court, that'd be fine.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit. If we can accommodate that, then we certainly will. I have no problem in trying to do this as quickly as possible. So, all right. Then under those circumstances, ladies and gentlemen, if you will pass with our officer over to the jury room, then you can hold on to those notes or you can leave them in the jury room as long as they have your name on them so that you're claimed by you. You shouldn't look at each other's notes, just look at your own. So, all right? Oh, and let me remind you again not to discuss this case with anyone on the jury, not to let anyone discuss it with you, and don't talk about it. Talk about how nice the accommodations are, or how nice your guards are, or anything you want to talk about. But don't talk, or you can talk about UT football if you want to. I think that might be it. All right, there you go. You want more Oreos? Is that what you want? All right, thank you. That particular juror was talking about I stole a package of Oreos out of the jury box when they had the snacks for the jurors. So I asked her not to reveal that to the world, and she just did. So. All right. Now we are ready then to take up. The only other thing then for today would be two things. One, I want to have a bench conference with the lawyers But the second thing would be that I need to make sure that if there's a transcript of the next proceeding, is what I'm understanding that you want to present to me that's been redacted so that I can review that, then what I'd like to do before council leaves today is to have a copy of that, let me review it, go over it, make sure there's no issues, and then we can come back on the record and confirm that if that is in fact acceptable in the way it's been redacted.
Mr. Wyatt has graciously created several redacted versions to provide to Your Honor and to defense in hopes of speeding up the process. So
Several redacted versions of the same transcript?
we don't know exactly yet how you're going to rule. So anyway, we will need to print all of those versions. We can do that at this next break and provide them to defense. And
All right, well, let's do this. Let's start with redacted version number 1 and let the defense see that and see if they have any objection to it. And then I don't mind reading as many redacted versions as you have as if I need to, but I'm just thinking in terms of trying to simplify things. Let's, if you have a printed version of redacted version number 1, let's let the state review it and see if there's any issues about that, and then we'll talk about what needs to be redacted, and hopefully that can be done that way. So, in addition to that, though, I would like to have a bench conference with the lawyers. If you could approach the bench.
It's on the record.
It will be on the record. My microphone. All right. This is going to be a conference that I do not want reported on the news media, so if you will stop the recording for that portion, please. All right, we're going to take a recess at this point in time to allow defense counsel and the court to review the redacted transcripts that I'm being asked to consider. In addition to that, we need to have a meeting in the alternate jury room back here with counsel to discuss some logistics issues. So let's go ahead and have that meeting first while Mr. Wyatt is working on the transcripts that he needs to present. So we can stand in recess.
All rise. This court is in recess.
that would be
At 5 o'clock sharp tomorrow, we'll go until we have all of our witnesses. Anything else then before we adjourn?
Judge, the only other issue that I foresee
Is this anything that we need the reporter for?
No.
Okay.
I'm just informing the court and defense, and I've already told Mr. Evans, is Dr. Lee, it's impossible for me to know whether we'll get to him on.
This is the, okay.
It's impossible for me to know right now. We'll get to him on Wednesday or Thursday. That'll be the close of our proof. And I say that only because he's under subpoena in Warren County as well. And the judge in Warren County has contacted ADA-SAGI personally to try to make us pick a day. Well, I can't do that because I don't know when we'll finish. I'm just giving you the heads up if you're contacted by Warren County.
All right, so we will, we'll plan on going ahead and go forward with our proof at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we'll see how we are at that point. And the deal as far as Dr. Lee goes, we'll obviously have to deal with that. It would seem to me we've got priority on it, so I think, no offense to any other judge or any other court, but I would certainly think we need Dr. Lee when we need him, so, all right. Then we will stand adjourned until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. In the meantime, we'll review those transcripts, please, and sometime tomorrow, if we have an attempt to go forward and review any objections or suggested changes to that transcript. Thank you. We'll stand adjourned.
All rise.
Recording stopped.